How did we leave out Daring Do in a discussion of references?
Well, there's so many, Digi. We could go on until next week. Almost so obvious that we can't mention.
That's like easy mode. We don't do easy mode.
But then you realize there are little kids watching this who have no clue, and you're like, oh no.
James Bond references with Donut Joe on the train episode, and oh man,
it's
ninjas. We missed all the obvious references. We really did. And it's about time. For those who don't know, Twilight gets all messed up and everything, and it looks like Solid Snake, but it looks even more like Snake from Escape from L.A., which is what Solid Snake was based on. Mm-hmm. So I think it's actually meant to be an Escape from New York, Escape from L.A. reference.
The hugging the walls and the sneaking around.
Yeah. Could be a Metal Gear Solid reference. That'd be like a really intense video game
There
reference.
is a Metal Gear Solid reference in Pony. And it's a musical reference. It's a mysterious Mare Duel. The Mare Duel theme is like a totally obvious mashup of Batman, the '89 Batman film, and Metal Gear Solid. You listen to the theme from the soundtrack, it's verbatim.
A mysterious mayor that has done well by our fair city today.
He gave us a signal.
There's a Darkwing Duck reference in there too that went over my head because I never watched Darkwing Duck.
The costume is very Darkwing Duck.
Looks exactly like Darkwing Duck's.
I never watched that show. I remember it, but
why are we just now remembering all these?
Well, why not?
Sudden floodgates open.
Oh, you want floodgates? I'll give you floodgates. Obviously, a video discussion is not the best way to list every single reference or familiar motif in a show. If you're truly interested in comprehensive lists of that kind of thing, actually going to tvtropes.org or any of the innumerable MLP wiki pages out there would serve you better. However, in spite of any impression this project gives to the contrary, the vast majority of our observations in this episode occurred to us without resorting to any online research. They're just things we immediately recognize as people raised in a mass media world. Okay, enough about that. Time for a montage. I know I'll get a ton of crap for not mentioning the similarities between Celestia and Luna and Anna and Elsa, but please keep in mind that when we recorded this, Frozen hadn't even come out yet. Yeah, it's been a while. On to some more Disney influences, and there's a lot to choose from. One of the signature devices in Friendship is Magic is the use of stained glass style art during the exposition of backstory and lore, and that was almost certainly inspired by the iconic opening scene of Beauty and the Beast.
Placed a powerful spell on the castle.
Okay, you know how in Rainbow Rocks there are three main villain characters that form that cliché trio of, you know...
The obvious leader, the brainless comedic relief, and the other one.
Yeah, that. But I'm pretty sure we're all even more familiar with it from somewhere else. What do you think, Ed? In Philly Vanilli, Applejack plays the part of Emperor Cusco to Big Mac's Pacha.
We're about to go over a huge waterfall.
Not quick enough?
Nope.
And just like in The Emperor's New Groove, they both end up going off a waterfall together. This scene in Magical Mystery Cure, was not only the inspiration for the title of the video you're watching.
You are an inspiration to us all, Twilight.
But was itself inspired by other scenes and stuff where everyone bows down at the end to the hero. Like here. And also here. Okay, that's enough Disney for now. Let's talk about something even more fun. Superheroes! Now, of course, there were really obvious references to superheroes in the episode Power Ponies, but like Tom already said, that's easy mode, and we don't do easy mode here. For example, there was an episode of Justice League Unlimited where Flash humbly addresses a cheering hometown audience, just like Applejack did in the last roundup. And afterwards, he shoots the breeze with his fellow citizens on a first-name basis, kinda like Pinkie Pie in A Friend Indeed. Basically, Flash is a total bro. No, not you. So there's another reference to the '89 Batman film in It's About Time.
Mirror!
Also, I know a lot of people recognize the scene where Pinkie Pie displayed super-duper spider powers. But did anyone notice that the cold receptionist with a New York accent in Rarity Takes Manhattan was also in Spider-Man 2?
Start, so you'll just have to bring your dresses along with you.
You're late.
Not to mention, Rainbow Dash trying to stop the cart looks a lot like Toby trying to stop the train. Rainbow Dash often looks like a superhero. For example, when she dives after a bunch of falling people and saves them at the last moment. That's basically Iron Man 3, except animated on a much smaller budget. King Sombra in cloud form kinda reminds me of Parallax from Green Lantern, and Shining Armor channels a little bit of Hal Jordan in trying to hold him off. Speaking of holding off a villain, Cadence's shield reminded me strongly of a scene from Spider-Man the Animated Series, where Sue Storm tries desperately to keep everyone safe with her force field, while her husband offers moral support.
You did it, darling.
While we're on the topic of energy shields, one surrounds a castle as it gets chipped away at by a swarm of baddies in Harry Potter. But of course, in My Little Pony, it's a pink shield, which kinda reminds me of another movie, That Shall Not Be Named. But that does remind me, My Little Pony makes a bunch of pretty blatant references to the Star Wars films that were actually good, such as...
I'm sorry.
I know.
I love you.
I know.
a briefing scene involving holographic projections and a soft-spoken but commanding female leader.
Of the Emperor's new battle station. We also noted the weapon systems of this Death Star are not yet operational.
Jedi training in a swamp.
Use the Force.
No noise.
A guy riding out of a snowstorm wearing cold weather gear. I've got a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Very bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this. A really bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I have you now.
We have you now!
I have you now.
A black-cloaked villain who seduces someone to evil.
Help me to grow strong and be rewarded with something far greater than friendship.
Do what must be done, Lord Vader. Do not hesitate. Show no mercy.
Badass princesses who defy villains.
What have you done?
I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Give my regards to Cerberus.
Take it away!
You won't get away with this! Twilight and her friends will...
You were saying...
We have powerful friends. You're gonna regret this.
And a scary worm monster that comes out of a hole in the ground, which probably originated with Frank Herbert's Dune, but has been done in so many things since then it's impossible to keep track of. Speaking of Star Wars influences, one does not simply make a Spaceballs reference that gets past me.
What's the matter, Granny Smith? Chicken?
What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken?
This is kind of random, but does anyone remember Irma from the 90s Ninja Turtle series? Doesn't she remind you a little bit of someone? 90s rap. In keeping with the theme of 90s references, Twilight channels her inner Tom Hanks.
Equestria, we have a problem.
Houston, we have a problem.
Now, I knew Spike was voiced by a woman and all, but I never knew it was Barbara Streisand?
Hello, gorgeous.
Hello, gorgeous.
Throwing your own wife to save the day? Now that's one I've never seen before. Oh, wait.
Bob, throw me!
By the way, Fluttershy, you better hurry it up or you'll be
late for a very important date. I'm late for a very important date.
Did anyone else notice that Twilight's pseudoscience lecture in bats looked and sounded suspiciously like some of the trailers for the game Portal 2?
These are the bats, and this is Fluttershy doing her stare. The spell was...
What do you think about that, Princess GLaDOS?
I have no use for friendship. I am a cold-hearted robot who has no time for pathetic things like that.
Whoa! Dude, that's creepy.
In Magic Duel, Trixie returns to Ponyville to get revenge. That was a theme in some other movie, right?
You and I have some unfinished business.
You and I have unfinished business.
Also, Trixie vs. Twilight reminded me a lot of the showdown between Princess Starfire and her smug older sister Blackfire in Teen Titans. Blackfire even uses a magical amulet to gain an unfair advantage and... yikes, quite the resemblance there, don't you think? Spike tries making a cake, but eats all the ingredients before he bakes. I'm pretty sure that Cookie Monster can relate.
What we got left?
Well, let's see, raisins. You could still make raisin cookies.
Raisin cookies, good.
Okay, here are
good.
the raisins.
Yeah, okay, now, when you get raisins... Oh, Ernie, me sorry. Oh.
Cookie Monster? We were gonna make... How can we make apple walnut raisin cookies when you ate all the apples and all the walnuts and all the raisins?
The main six having to give up the elements of harmony in order to keep the world safe is a trope Digimon fans should remember from Season 2, where the kids have to give up the power of their crests. Rainbow Dash has to think.
Think.
Oh, and Dashy, you know when you highlighted everything in your textbook? That reminds me very strongly of every single used law school textbook I ever owned. What is the point of highlighting the entire page? Seriously, what the Pinkie Pie uses a bubble pipe for comedic effect, which was done before by Sokka.
You're right.
And before him, Stewie.
Indeed.
But of course, Simpsons did it first.
Cute.
There are a couple of other things the Simpsons did.
Simpsons did it! Simpsons did it!
For example, parodying The Music Man. A magician does a disappearing act, but doesn't actually disappear all that well.
She's gone! Oh wait, there she is!
A slack-jawed yokel.
We met at the big hoedown at Ponyville last fall!
A weird shop where you buy weird stuff from a weird, kinda Chinese-looking guy.
We also sell frozen yogurt, which I call Frogut.
Well, I need something for my son's birthday.
Perhaps this will please the gentleman. Take this object, but beware, it carries a terrible curse.
Yvonne Niaj. Both shows also had some profound lessons, too. Like how important it is to live only for the present and not to worry too much about the future.
As long as I can keep eating ice cream. Sorry, future Spike. Oh.
That's a problem for future Homer. Man, I don't envy that guy.
Using food to deal with grief.
No.
Oh man, that's good. Pass the butter.
Dealing with the trauma of childhood fears.
Can't sleep. Is there a bug in here? Clown will eat me. Can't
I don't know about you, but
Clown will eat me.
Societal priorities.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Think of the cider. Won't some pony please think of the cider?
Struggles with learning and modern education.
Except after Luna was banished to the moon,
George Washington felt when he surrendered for necessity to the French in 1754.
Pegasi formed the EUP Guard of the Protective Pony.
The famous defeat of the French. Oh,
my God, Bart, you're right.
So?
You just demonstrated applied knowledge.
Questioning the nature of existence.
Oh, why does life have to be so ironic?
Why must life be so hard?
And most importantly, how fun it is to honk people on the nose.
Bart, don't you ever do that again. Understand?
Beep.
Well, I think I'd better wrap this up for now, before this really does go on until next week. But what I want to get across here is that all of these repeated motifs and familiar tropes are the building blocks, the very atoms and molecules of all stories, not just one. They form the vocabulary that makes up the language of storytelling itself. And just as a linguist loves language for its own sake, or a mathematician loves numbers and patterns for their own sake, so too do many bronies love My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, not just for its story, but out of appreciation for the language with which that story gets told.